It's Bob Francis from Go Full Throttle. Welcome to Motorsports Nation. We're previewing Martinsville. Qualifying just ended. Joining me on the show this week, Nikolai Culp. Nikolai, wow, that was a fascinating qualifying session. I think we saw in practice and looking at the 30-lap averages, the Hendrick cars seem to have gotten off to a really solid start with practice times, and especially as they started to get 10, 15, 20-lap averages down. But I think when we moved into qualifying, all the commentary coming from the track was the temperature is dropping and it's dropping fast, and Goodyear had introduced this new tire. So there was a lot of unknowns, especially as the 8 playoff drivers got to their turn at the end of qualifying. How did you see that playing out?
Yeah, in terms of the result sheets, Hendrick Motorsports, I mean, you could throw any year out there and saying Hendrick Motorsports was the best at Martinsville. It seems like a good conclusion. But I mean, as you said, the lap averages were great for Hendrick, for Byron, Larson, and Elliott. Obviously, Elliott mathematically must win. Byron, essentially a must win. And if he does win, then Larson still has to perform very well. So in terms of the good side of the timesheets, obviously Hendrick Motorsports stood out. In terms of the bad side of the timesheet, though, with the qualifying at least was Ryan Blaney. He qualified 31st. I don't know what happened there, but wow, that was a shock. And they still had good lap averages. So they stood out. What else did you see from practice and qualifying outside of
Yeah,
just Hendrick?
that really was shocking. I also noted that in the battle between Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell, Bell looks like he's off a degree or two. Larson had clearly the better multi-lap averages, and Larson qualified P3. Bell, as I look at timing and scoring, he's P12. So the time differential was not that much, but he's going to be starting back a few rows. And it looks like that Hendrick experience and all the wins that they have racked up over all the years of racing at Martinsville has paid off. The cars came off the truck and they looked good in practice. They looked good here in qualifying. The Blaney thing, I don't have an explanation for that, because looking at his practice times and his lap averages, he, statistically should have been up there with the rest of the playoff drivers, but something went horribly wrong. And I'm wondering, I'm sure we'll get more data and more information about this overnight, Nikolai, but Joey Logano, Ryan's teammate, his first lap was somewhere down in the 20s, and then he really came back super strong on his second lap of qualifying and ends up qualifying P4. So I'm wondering, is it tire pressure? Is it this new tire package? And as temperatures dropped, that completely messed up Blaney's approach? I guess we'll find out. But boy, that's going to be tough duty for a driver in a must-win scenario to be starting all the way back in 31st. So, Nikolai, I think another thing we can look at is Chase Elliott had the fastest single lap time in practice, but he qualifies not bad. He's eighth in qualifying, and we're talking hundreds of seconds here that separate the top 10. But still, to see William Byron come in and grab that top spot when you have those two Hendrick drivers that are essentially going to be battling not only the rest of the field, but each other, because it's going to be a dogfight for who gets in to the championship 4. So I chuckle because you've got 2 Gibbs cars are already locked in with Briscoe and Hamlin. And then you've got the Hendrick cars, 3 of them trying to break in, with Larson above the cut line looking pretty solid, starting third. And then you've got this anomaly of the Penske cars, which is really strange because they have the last few years done very well at Martinsville and gone in and won the championship between Logano and Ryan Blaney. So, boy, that sets up for something intriguing tomorrow. What do you think about Christopher Bell? He looks like he was slightly off across all 3 scoring metrics today.
Yeah, Bell, it's been an odd case because he won that 2022 race. He was in the must-win situation, won that race. I think he led a triple digits in laps, so it's not like he just backed into it or anything, as Kyle Busch would say. He's been weirdly off, I guess. He isn't terribly off. The 10 lap, he's still top 10. The 15 lap, top 10. 20 lap, a little bit further down, but it's very, when you look at the situation he's in right now, if we get a new winner, he has to outperform Larson. He's not really close to Larson right now. That's their target. So it's a little bit of an odd situation, especially when Denny Hamlin still looked pretty fast. Ty Gibbs qualified up pretty good. So it's a very odd thing. I mean, they're not complete junk, but they're not close to Larson right now, which is who they need to be close or better than with the situation at hand. So
Right.
what did you see with Bell?
Larson has 1 point going in. So you've got the must-win scenario. The 4 drivers below the cut line, stage points don't matter. They're going to be short pitting and they're going to be trying to set themselves up to have track position, especially in that final stage. And they're not going to care about stage points. But for Larson and Bell, points are everything. And specifically because they are only separated by 1 point, they're going to be in a dogfight the entire race, marking each other. That could affect pit strategy. That could affect their fuel strategy. That could affect their overall approach to the race, which is that battle, the race in the race. So I was a bit surprised to see Bell seeming like he's off a little bit, and Larson clearly with his, being at the top of the charts with the lap averages and his qualifying position. I guess Larson has a leg up here as we are going to Saturday night. But let's see what the weather drives tomorrow. The story of the week, or one of the many storylines we've been tracking this week, is Goodyear bringing this new tire. So there was testing on this tire, but as we have seen at multiple tracks this year, temperature plays a lot, especially on a track that has concrete in Martinsville, concrete in the corners. How much rubber gets laid down is very temperature dependent. We saw that at Bristol. So I think, there was a driver availability this week with Ryan Preece. He was asked specifically about, NASCAR trying to move, especially the short tracks, to become much more competitive, and that he's been advocating for 4 years now that we need to soften up the tires. We need much more tire fall off. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that after the break. But I think, are we seeing the results of these things that NASCAR is trying to do to make the short tracks more competitive?
Yeah, that's obviously been a huge topic, not just Martinsville, but as you had mentioned, Bristol has been all over the place. Zero tire fall off to what we saw a couple weeks ago, where everyone's pitting every 40 laps. I mean, New Hampshire, I think, if I remember correctly, had a decent amount of fall off. So obviously, these short tracks, they're trying to find something with the tire, with the temperature, which, you can't control the temperature ultimately, but all these different factors that change the short tracks.
Well, it's typical weather for Virginia this time of year. I know because I lived down the road in Roanoke for 8 years. Boy, it does get chilly, especially when that sun goes down, as we saw tonight. Well, we're going to hear more about this after the break. We do have a clip from Ryan Preece from driver availabilities this week. We'll be back just after this on Motorsports Nation.
The Honor and Remember flag is a nationally recognized symbol that sends a message of appreciation for the sacrifice made by our fallen heroes and their families. The flag flies at many NASCAR races around the country, and you can help honor our nation's fallen military members and remember the eternal sacrifice of their service by flying the flag too. Text FLAG to 71777 or visit honorandremember.org to learn more. Together, we remember them all.
Message and data rates may apply.
Welcome back to Motorsports Nation. I'm Bob Francis, along with my colleague Nikolai Culp. We've just witnessed qualifying here at Martinsville Speedway. William Byron gets the pole. Nikolai, I think, as we were discussing before the break, this tire compounding and temperature looks like it's going to be a factor in the race tomorrow. They're predicting, again, cool temperatures tomorrow. And if there is a rash of cautions or a red flag or anything that pushes this where the end of the race is moving towards sundown, I think that's going to be the storyline of the season, because that could really determine what happens. We have a clip here from Ryan Preece from Ford Performance and RFK Racing discussing this very topic this week with the media. Here's Ryan Preece from RFK.
Thank you, Lee. Let's hand it over to Bob Francis. Welcome to the call, Bob. Go ahead.
Thank you. And Ryan, thanks for the time. Bob Francisco, Full Throttle Racing News. You talked earlier in one of your answers about the tire changes and that for 4 years you've been urging this change and going this direction. Tell us a little bit about the horsepower change for next season. How is that going to play into the better racing that you anticipate?
Well, I think they all go hand in hand. We all, from a percentage breakdown, I think it's less than 10% or 670. Yeah, I mean, it's around 10% change. I don't, it's going to make a difference, but I think the tires being softer and all the things that Goodyear's been doing has made a huge change. And, we were at the Roval a couple weeks ago, and you could barely hook up the tires in third gear through the oval portions. So,
right.
At the end of the day, what we're doing as a sport is allowing us race car drivers to use the tools that we've learned coming through the ranks. And, if our car isn't the fastest car, we can find ways to maximize our days or potentially win based on those skills that we've learned. So, that's the thing I really like about the direction we're going in with this sport.
Great. Thank you, Ryan. So Nikolai, as Ryan just commented on, not only is there the tire changes, which he has been advocating for and really thinks NASCAR needs to keep working with Goodyear to push harder to get a tire compound or a series of tire compounds that puts more of the racing in the driver's hands. He's a super advocate for that, and that makes sense given his modified short track background. But then I had the opportunity to ask Ryan about the coming horsepower change at some tracks next year and the impact that might have. So I think what we're hearing from Ryan Preece and from other drivers is all good stuff. As NASCAR has looked at the product as it's come to be known, how good is the racing? And that means butts in seats, and that means eyeballs on TV screens. If the racing gets boring, and let's face it, some of the short track events have not been the greatest television, not the compelling door-to-door racing, especially on short tracks that we like to see, that the fans seek and desire. So how do you see that, Nikolai? I think this is all moving in a positive direction.
I fully agree. And look, Ryan Preece, he knows the short track circuit. He knows a lot about the short tracks, the cars. So when it comes to that topic of discussion, I'm always going to lean on someone who knows what they're talking about. So from that aspect, for sure. And, the entire next gen era, it feels like we've been talking about short tracks and road courses. We got to do something different, add horsepower, change the tires. And Goodyear has been very willing to change things, softening the tires, doing these different things. And sometimes it just comes down to temperature, or sometimes it comes down because Bristol's been an anomaly. I mean, we've seen good, like, I think last Martinsville fall, we saw some fall off, but in this past spring, we didn't see much. So the new tire compound combined with, as you mentioned, if there's a lot of cautions, a red flag, and this race goes late, I think it's a 2:15 local start. So I'm not 100% sure when the sun sets, but if this thing goes dark, how cold is it getting and what does it do to the tires? It's a very valid question.
Well, that's going to make the race that much more exciting, and can't wait to see how that plays out. Okay, so it's prediction time.
Lovely.
And I think that, there are multiple storylines in the prediction models that we're running for the race. And one of those is strictly on who is going to make up the final four. Denny Hamlin locked in, Chase Briscoe locked in. There's 2 spots available for who's going to compete for a championship here in Phoenix in 1 week. Right now, that's Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell. However, it's Martinsville. Anything could happen. And so that's sort of the question. I've got a series of prediction models running on essentially that question. Can Larson and Bell, with their points advantage above the cut line, just ride it out, do what they need to do, get some stage points, finish top 10, finish top 15, and then battle each other if it turns out that there's going to be a new race winner that's going to alter, and only make one spot available? Then the battle between the two of them is going to be epic to watch. And as we know here on Motorsports Nation, my little nickname for Larson versus Bell is the Dirt Brothers, since they both have extensive dirt track background racing sprint cars and micros and everything else. Chili Bowl. Boy, I can't wait for that this winter. Then there's another set of prediction models, which is, okay, well, what about the 4 drivers below the cut line, especially Chase Elliott, who looked so good today. He had the fastest single lap time in practice. He had a strong, he was in the top 3 or 4 there for lap average. And then, let's see, he qualified 8th. So Chase Elliott starting 8th. So that bodes well for you only have one job. You have to win the race. Points don't matter. Stage points don't matter. Chase Elliott, 63 below the cut line. It's very cut and dry. He has to win the race to make it into the championship 4. Statistically, right now, the models are, as you know, we'll see what happens tonight, Nikolai. As everybody here on Motorsports Nation knows, on Saturday night, we'll ingest all that data from practice and from qualifying today, and the models will rerun various scenarios, and we'll see what at least our AI prediction is for Chase Elliott. As strong as he looked today in practice, as strong as his multi-lap average looked, as strong as his qualifying effort was, it's still a humongous task to overcome that points deficit. And does he have wins on the board? Yes. Has he raced strong at Martinsville in the past? Obviously, yes. But boy, what a pressure cooker. So right now, pre-qualifying prediction model was Ryan Blaney was going to win this race. Now, after this horrible qualifying session and starting that deep in the field, we'll see how the models calculate and run that scenario out. Going to be extremely difficult for Blaney to come from that far back, especially given it's Martinsville. So, Nikolai, how do you see this playing out tomorrow?
Man, it almost feels like, I know Bell and Larson, they have that huge points gap and everything, but it feels like everyone's in a must win, because if Larson and Bell just don't want to deal with the point situation, it sounds so easy to say, but just win. It eliminates your issues. And if your Bell and Larson wins, great, awesome, you're still in. And if your Larson and Bell wins, great, you're in. This could be potentially the last ever cutoff race. We don't know, specifically at Martinsville for a Final 4 spot. So that could make things interesting. We could get one last insane race. You never know. My preseason championship pick was Chase Elliott, and it was solely off of Chase Elliott winning at Martinsville to advance at Phoenix. Sticking with it. Chase Elliott to win. And ultimately, after what we've seen in practice, Larson just looks better than Bell right now, unless Bell has a massive turnaround. So that would mean the Final 4 is Denny Hamlin, Chase Briscoe, Chase Elliott, and Kyle Larson. Are you going to go with the model? Or are you going to go with something different? I guess the model hasn't come out with its data yet.
I'm going to, with a lot of anxiousness, watch the data ingestion tonight and see how the scenarios will be available tomorrow morning. On Sunday morning, we'll present those scenarios. My gut tells me right now that it's going to be, the model's going to predict Larson to win. And I think you can never, ever, ever count out Denny Hamlin. I know there's this theory, which I'm not a believer in the sit back theory, that it doesn't matter. Denny Hamlin's a race car driver. He has sponsors. Joe Gibbs has won more races than any other team this year for a reason. And so this idea that Briscoe and Hamlin, because they're already locked into the championship 4, have been looking past Martinsville. They've spent all their sim time and everything just on Phoenix, and that this race doesn't matter. I'm sorry. Virginia is Hamlin's home state. That's his home track. There's no way that Denny Hamlin is going to lay back and just say it doesn't matter. You know, Hamlin qualified P5. So he's starting up front. And I think he's going to give it the same Denny Hamlin tenacity and battle to win, just merely because he loves racing on Martinsville. So Larson to win. I'm not discounting Denny Hamlin. We'll see what the models say. Chase Elliott pulling an absolute miracle, going from 63 points out and making the championship 4. I don't have the faith in that you have.
He did it once, and you never know. Martinsville's one of his best tracks. That's the only back I have, and it's his only option.
That's true. And we'll never forget that Martinsville race where he won and then went on to win the championship. And classic move of the heads up of the pit crew who looked like he was going to get a penalty, but he went and tagged up
Oh,
like in
yeah.
baseball. Remember that? It was
I forgot
destiny.
about that.
It was destiny that Elliott was going to win that year. And, but we'll see that overcome that points deficit and to be in the midst of a battle versus a battle versus a battle. Elliott must win. Larson versus Bell. Who's going to overcome that? Does if you go with some of the other analysts out there, does Denny Hamlin just sort of mail this one in? I don't see that happening. All right, there's our predictions. We're going to wrap up the show now. It's been great having Nikolai Culp join us with our analysis here for the wrap up of the round of 8 at Martinsville Speedway. Races tomorrow, the Xfinity 500. Look on the Go Full Throttle X feed tomorrow morning when we'll release the results of the model refresh overnight. We'll get all that data. We'll run a bunch of scenarios and then we'll post our fantasy predictions for the race. As a reminder, Nikolai, I picked Denny Hamlin in my bracket to go all the way and win the championship this year. So tomorrow's race is not really going to impact that, but a win tomorrow by Hamlin with all the momentum that comes with that going into Phoenix could be the ticket to, just one more feather in the cap of my AI models, and we'll see if that happens to turn out to be the case. Nikolai, thanks for joining us. We'll enjoy watching the race tomorrow. And fans, make sure you check the X channel in the morning, a Go Full Throttle on X, and we'll be able to post those final predictions. For that, it's Bob Francis along with Nikolai Culp saying good night from Motorsports Nation.